All right,
Yeah.
so a little bit about me. My name is Sanai Abell. I've been a social worker for the last 5 years. I specialize in child welfare. Specifically, what I'm doing right now is I work as a child protective services investigator. I did 3 years in the state of Oregon. I've done 2 in the state of Washington, and currently I am doing CPS here in Washington, D.C., back on the East Coast. Um, I have a bachelor's degree in social work. I actually graduated from the University of Montana, so go Grizz.
Yay.
And yeah, enjoying my life working in the field and, that personal, fantastic hell that comes with it.
If you don't mind me asking, how did you get to Child Protective Services?
So the simple answer for that is I am the least competitive person that exists on the planet. And when I was going through school and was trying to decide on a career, everyone was competing for nothing. So you had 20, 30 people that were hyper competitive over a position that paid absolutely nothing, but it checked a box because it looked pretty. And I literally Googled what is the most difficult career in social work that no one wants to do with the highest turnover rate, and it was Child Protective Services, and I decided I'm going to do that.
So you love a challenge. I can respect that. Tell me, I know
I'm
you
a
could
total
probably list
masochist.
off all day, but how about you just list off, maybe go into some detail about some of the challenges within your practice?
Be more specific. So there
Like, I understand
are
that,
innumerable challenges.
like, I understand partly within your profession, every day is different. Every day could be from 5 to a 10, you never know. But just tell me about what about this day in particular. Tell me like some of the challenges that one happened today, that happened today.
Okay, so today specifically, I had 2 cases that I was working on, and it was supposed to be a relatively relaxing day. So I got to telework, which is fantastic. Um, I was sitting at the gym doing a conference call with my supervisor. 2 of our people had called out, and then we had a handful of deadlines on other people's cases that had to be met. So I had to go out into the field and respond to 2 emergency cases. One was not that big of a deal, and the other one was a little bit on the insane side.
Mm.
The one that was not that big of a deal is I had to work with a nonverbal autistic kid during a school investigation where the school is actually being investigated for abuse because the child had multiple unexplained injuries that they had received while in custody of the school. So I had to investigate the facility itself, and it turns out that this school did not have a special education teacher and has not had one for the last 6 months. And apparently, what they were doing is they were just locking all of the kids unsupervised into a classroom because there was no one to keep an eye on them.
That's horrible to hear. Is that a common occurrence throughout the states you've had to work?
So the schools have a lot of staffing issues, and unfortunately, they're mandated to take people, but if they don't have the staff to be able to do the things that they need, especially special needs kiddos, then they take them and apparently just put them into a room. So there's an independent third party organization that is also supposed to simultaneously do this investigation called Risk Management. And we'll be meeting with them next week in order to finish up. But whatever consequences are going to arise because of this will depend on the results of the investigation. And then the second challenge that I had was what's the best way to explain this one? So I had what's called a retaliatory phone call. So basically, 2 parents that do not agree with one another, and as a result, they utilize child welfare as a weapon. So every single time anything happens at all whatsoever, one parent always calls the other, and it's a back and forth constantly. It happens every single week. It's the same handful of people while they're going through family court because they're trying to get ammunition in order to utilize it in court in order to get a better custody result rather than 50-50, which is
Out of
typically
like
what happens.
10 cases, how many would generally that be?
Retaliatory, 1 or 2 out of 10.
Okay. Okay.
So typically, 4 out of 10 end up being neglect, and usually it's involving substance use disorder. 3 out of 10 are probably physical abuse allegations. So a parent hits a child or a relative hits a child. You have 1 out of 10 that typically end up being sex abuse, and then you have 1 out of 10 that are parents that just don't get along and they're trying to weaponize the system. And then you have another small amount that are retaliatory. So basically, one person's trying to get someone else back, so they make a phone call, make random allegations, and then we still have to go and investigate it.
How do you usually end up having to engage with that?
I mean, just asking questions. That's the biggest one. So typically, you can read through. So let me just give you an idea of what the process looks like. So someone calls into the hotline, and then the intake worker at the hotline will record all of the information, and they'll create a narrative, and then they and their supervisor will decide whether it gets assigned or not. And if it gets assigned, then it's given a designation depending on the severity. So you have a 24-hour, which is basically what we call an immediate response. So it's something that has reached a threshold where we have to respond immediately because a child is in imminent danger. Then you have 72 hours response times, which are typically things that aren't as serious but needs to be looked into. And then you have a 10-day response time. So a 10-day is like something that would be retaliatory or minor, or some agencies call it a family assessment, where the family's struggling. There's definitely some issues that are going on. There's not enough. I mean, there's some yellow flags there, but not enough there to warrant an actual CPS investigation. And a lot of times, it's just walking into the situation, finding out where they're struggling, and putting in support services before you can just walk away.
Okay.
So once something is assigned, then we go out and deal with it. So in this particular case where you have something that's retaliatory, I'll read the report and see what's there. I'll check to see, like, does the family have a history? Have they been engaged with child welfare before? Is there multiple reports of like substance use or arrest records or anything like that? And in this case, it's middle class family. There's absolutely no issues whatsoever. They have zero history, no arrest records, no nothing. And then the information that's in the report is like very flamboyant. So
Okay.
it's like very highly descriptive. It's someone who is basically like you can just have a pretty decent idea by reading the report that they were throwing everything that they could, at the wall, hoping something would stick.
Okay. Okay. That's what
And
we do.
then Yep. And then the other thing that I do when I find those cases is I call whoever the reporter is in order to get additional information. This serves two purposes. One is to let them know that there is an investigation that is open and it is something we are looking into, and then the other is it allows us to kind of interview the reporter to see if they're credible.
Okay. Okay.
Like a good example is I talked to someone and they're not capable of keeping a straight story. So they backtrack constantly. They're making things up. They're changing things on a regular basis. I mean, just things happen constantly, and it's very easy to pick up on just those patterns.
But you have to interview a lot of
And you,
people. Hello? Hello? You're muted.
I mean, can
Oh,
you hear me now?
yeah. What was that?
I have
Magic?
no idea. I think you just got disconnected there for a second.
Okay. You were
But
saying?
I mean, it's a process of elimination, and if in certain cases where Like, you think it's nothing, and you're going to walk into the situation with an open mind, and it tends out being, holy crap, what the hell did I just walk into? And then others where like the allegations are, that looks like it's going to be hell. Like, you're walking into a situation and you go into it and it's like, this is absolutely nothing.
Hmm.
Like one of the one that I walked in today was absolutely nothing. It's a kiddo who had two black eyes, and like there was concerns that this child was being hit in the face by a parent. And I go there to the school, I interview the kiddo, and the kiddo has two swollen eyes, and the child has hives, and the eyes are bloodshot, and they're rubbing their. It's you can tell instantaneously, 100% that it's just an allergic reaction. But it
Okay.
was called in as physical abuse by retaliatory by one parent that didn't get along with the other,
Okay. I
and the other
mean,
parent was completely aware of everything, had already had records of going to the doctor. The child had bad allergies. They were waiting on prescriptions, and there's a national shortage right now, and the prescriptions aren't going to be available until Monday. And I mean, there's nothing else to do in that case.
okay, that's good. That's
Just
good.
check back up in a week.
Okay. I know you said you're in your profession, it's always different generally every day, but roughly
Mhm.
maybe daily or weekly, how many cases do you end up having to go through?
That depends. It depends on a lot of factors. Time of year is a big one. So the easiest way to break down is the reports that we get. About 40% come from teachers in schools. So when
40%
school is in
teachers.
session, yeah. So when school is in session, we have exponentially more. So during the summertime, there's usually a lull in our caseload. So we'll have mm, two or three a week per caseworker. And then during times when school is not in session, and it can go to seven or eight per week.
Okay.
So
When
it can get really bonkers really fast, or really really slow, and you get nothing. Like
okay.
yesterday, only a single case came in.
Oh,
Just and that's not common, but it does happen.
okay. Okay. Considering like you've had very stressful cases at times, how do you avoid burnout?
You know, I mean, realistically, and so our average retention rate is 6 weeks. So, a typical person in Child Protective Services, a new caseworker will last about 6 weeks. And if they're capable of getting past the first 6 weeks, then their average retention rate becomes 2 years. And then they have to take a break.
Okay.
And you have some people who are lifers and they're capable of doing it forever. But it requires a handful of things. One is the number one most important skill that you can learn is something called professional detachment. So if you go into social work, think like as a very empathetic person that cares, you're going to have a bad time. Things are not going to work out well for you. You're going to get burned out really fast because your empathy circuits are just going to be fried. And you have to be able to completely detach yourself from whatever situation you go into. Like, I mean, there's nothing wrong with, caring about people, but you have to understand is you do not want to get bogged down in short-term empathy. What you want is long-term results.
Okay.
So being able to have that professional detachment, and it's a skill that you have to learn, and it's difficult to develop.
Okay.
Few people have it, and the ones who do, I mean, they're rock star social workers,
Okay.
and it's taken me a couple of years to get to that point.
And do you think that's in
Um,
most like social work professions that average social workers should develop, or
yeah, I definitely agree with that. Um,
Hmm.
I think that is something that most people have to develop because you need a thick skin. And then on
Okay.
top of having that thick skin, you also have the ability to prioritize yourself because you come first. Like if you are not at 100, then you do not have the ability to do your job. So you have to do self care. You have to take care of your physical health, your mental health. You have to be well grounded. You have to be balanced. You have to uh, there are so many things that you have to manage in your own personal life in order to be able to to get yourself to a point where you can get out the door and actually, work with other people and help them solve their problems.
Do you think that was taught to you in undergrad, or you just had to figure that out in the field?
No, it's something that you had to figure out because every person's situation is very different, and the only expert in your own life is you. So you have to adjust your entire life to fit your profession, not the other way around.
Okay. Okay. Did you think your undergrad prepared you for child welfare
No,
very well?
no, my undergrad felt like just a rehash in high school. It was just you're sitting in a class doing basic things, paying a lot of money to a person that sits in a very comfortable chair just to go out and work with people. And it felt no different than high school.
I love the honesty. I love the honesty.
Because everything that I learned, all the hard lessons are stuff that I learned in the field working with actual people.
Okay. Well, thank you. Thank you for doing this interview. I don't think there's anything